All right, guys, another episode of the Gospel of Fire, and man, I think it's two CrossFitters in a row I have on. So
Oh
last,
no,
oh
that's where you're
no,
messing up, dude.
I know, and I started I started with Khalifa, so I had Khalifa, then a little CrossFit break, and then I had Marcus Feely, and now I am here with a two-time CrossFit Games team champion, the co-founder of a company called Brute Strength, and now the president of WAG, Working Against Gravity. God damn it! I don't even remember how you pronounced your last name. Michael, say it for us.
Cazayoux.
Cazayoux, Michael Cazayoux. So, man, thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's an honor to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
So, man, let's talk about your CrossFit experience, like a games champion. Team games champion. That is not easy.
No, it is not easy. What do you want to know?
Well, how did that even get started, man? Like, where did the initial, like, I want to do that come? So was that early in life? Was that like you always have been an athlete? Like,
gotcha. Yeah. So I grew up in Louisiana playing about 5 sports a year. I played football, baseball, soccer, basketball. I did weightlifting, powerlifting. So that was like the only constant in my life growing up. CrossFit wasn't around until I was 17 or 18. So I definitely didn't dream of becoming a CrossFit champion.
Sure.
But when I was 17 years old, I left Louisiana, where I grew up, for drug rehab in Utah.
Okay.
Went through a whole experience there for about a year and a half, got clean. And for the first time in my life, I didn't have something physical that I was striving for. I was about to start college and I wasn't in any college sports. And so I trained for and ran a marathon. I trained my ass off, and it was really pivotal for me in my recovery, because it gave me something to strive for. It gave me like a really concrete goal to focus all of my energy on. And then when that marathon was over, for the first time in my life, I didn't have something that I was striving for, right? I was in school and I was in recovery, but neither of those were very exciting to me. And so for the first time, I didn't have this goal that I was working towards, and I relapsed really, really hard. The worst drug use of my entire life. And when I got out of that, I had a friend invite me to, I was kind of like floundering in the gym. I had no idea what I was doing. And a friend invited me to try a CrossFit class with him. He said, come try this out, and I think you'll love it. And so I go in and I feel like I'm the fucking man. I feel like I'm super fit, because I had won my age division in this marathon that I ran in Salt Lake City. And so I just feel like I'm on top of the world. I feel like I'm Superman. And I walk in there, and the workout is called Fight Gone Bad, which I thought sounded kind of silly. And I do the workout.
That's a classic for us. That is a classic.
For sure.
We don't do a lot of CrossFit in the martial arts space sometimes, but man, we've all done Fight Gone Bad.
Of course. Yeah. Especially in the martial arts space, I'm sure. So I do the workout and I just go absolute balls out. And I'm like, man, I just set a world record or something. And I ended up coming like last place in the class in the local gym in Salt Lake City. It was so humbling. And so on one hand, I felt really defeated and demoralized. And on the other hand, I was like, damn, I've got to do more of this, because if this old lady is beating me at this workout, then there's something really special for me here. So all of that to set up like this thing, CrossFit, became like really, really special and impactful for me early on in recovery. It gave me something to focus on and get my mind off of all of my troubles. At the time when I started, I had no idea what the CrossFit Games were. I wasn't interested in competing. I just wanted to have some way to stay in shape. And about 6 or 9 months later, I started to get a little bit more competitive in my gym, and I started to work my way up the ladder. And after maybe 9 months or a year, I was one of the best in the in the gym that I was at. Yeah, I was going back and forth between this one other guy and myself. And I started to hear about the CrossFit Games and the CrossFit Open. And at some point,
can I cut you off for 1 sec?
Absolutely.
What year is this?
This
what
is
year
2010.
Okay, so about 10 years ago. And how old are you at this point in 2010?
Let's see, I started in 2009 and I was 18.
18? So you're 19 years old in 2010.
Yes, exactly.
Got it. Okay.
So once I start getting more into it, I'm about 19, and I do a local competition put on by this guy named Tommy Hackenbrook. And Tommy, I had come to understand, was one of the best CrossFitters of all time, and he lived in this city that I lived in. And so I sign up and I'm doing the competition, and I'm in first place for the first like 3 or 4 events, and I'm beating this guy Tommy, who's one of the best. And then we start doing all of the heavy workouts, and I get my ass kicked, and I think I get like 4th place. I get just knocked off of the podium. But what had happened was I was ahead of Tommy for just long enough for me to really catch his eye. And so at the end of the competition, he invites me to join his gym and he says, "Hey man, why don't we start a team at my gym? We'll be a lot more competitive, and you'll have a chance to make it to the CrossFit Games." And at that time, I think CrossFit gyms still operate a little bit like this, but certainly so back in the day. CrossFit gyms, and I'm sure martial arts studios are very much the same. It's like a family, right? You suffer and you work hard together for months and years at a time, and you're so close knit. I felt like to leave that gym that I had started at was like breaking up with my family. And it was a really big challenge for me. I think I might have even talked to like my therapist about it. So it's a really big challenge for me. It takes me a couple weeks, but at some point I make the switch and I join this guy Tommy's gym. And so that year we put together a team and we went to the CrossFit regionals. We went to the games and we placed 9th, and we had a really good team, but nothing real noteworthy. And then after that, we decided, Tommy and I and a couple others decided that we were going to create a super team. And we were going to be one of the first gyms to actually recruit people to our gym. Nowadays, this is done by all teams. But at that time, a lot of people looked at us as maybe sleazy, I think.
So you were the first Miami Heat, is what you're saying.
We were the first Miami Heat, man.
Yeah.
We were just like, why not?
In the CrossFit world.
We were going to bring the biggest ballers in Utah together to try to win the CrossFit Games. That was the goal.
Right.
And so we got a couple of people from far away to come and train with us for several days per week, which was a huge commitment at the time.
Sure.
No one else in our space at that time was making that big of a commitment for teams. Individuals were making a huge time commitment, but not teams. And so to make an even longer story a little bit shorter, we would go on with that team to win the CrossFit Games the next 2 years.
Okay. The next 2 years in a row.
2 years in a row. And so we were the first team ever to win 2 years in a row.
Man, we have so much to get into there. That was an amazing story that you told, so that we have so much to talk about. Do you mind if I talk about your drug addiction? Is that okay?
Absolutely.
So how did that get started? Like at what age, and maybe what are some of the reasons you said that? I heard you say that athletics was the only constant in your life up until the point that you were 17 years old. So what was your growing up like? What sounded not the best and that led you to some demons?
Yeah, honestly, man, on paper, I had the all-American upbringing. Like I have 2 parents that are madly in love. My father is successful. My mother is successful. They come from great parents who are also in love and successful. They treated us with respect, and they just gave us everything, man. So I really had to try and fuck my life up, if you know what I mean.
And
so
and you're successful.
Oh, I was very successful.
You did it for a minute, yeah.
Yeah, man. So I come from Louisiana, where drinking is just ingrained in the culture. It's just what everyone does. And so, you know, I started sipping on beers or mixed drinks and wine when I was probably 4 or 5 years old. Like, you know, they would just give me a sip, right? And it just became kind of a normal thing. By the time I was 9, my 9th birthday, 2 of my older cousins said, hey man, it was a slumber party for my birthday. They said, hey, let's go sneak in the back and take a couple shots of Jack Daniels. And so we did that. And for the next few years, nothing really escalated. But what was present for me at that time was, and now I understand it from a physiological standpoint a lot better. What was going on was an intense desire to fit in. And what I know about drug addicts now is oftentimes they have a lower density of dopamine receptors, which basically means we need more higher thrills and more risk to give us the same sense of excitement that normal people have, right? If you, Eliot, would love jumping off of a 10-foot cliff, right? And that would really max out your thrill level. It might take me 30 feet to get the same dopamine response in my head to get that same response, right? On the other side, I have drug addicts have a higher density of oxytocin receptors. And so we're on average more sensitive to social pressure. We might care more what our peers think. And for me, that was definitely the case. So at some point as a child, I decided I wanted to fit in with the bad kids, right? Everybody wants to be cool. For whatever reason, I thought bad meant cool. And I became willing to do whatever it took to fit in with those kids. And it just so happens the kids in this little tiny town in Louisiana that I grew up in, where they were using drugs. And as we got older, together we used harder and harder drugs. And I was never afraid to try that next hardest thing. I was just literally willing to do whatever it took to fit in with this group. So that's how it started. And by the time I was 14, I started to smoke weed and take painkillers and take things like Xanax. And when I started to do those, especially the pills, I could conceal those, right? There's nothing on my breath. You can't smell me. I could hide it and I could use it much more often. And I developed an actual physical addiction and physical dependency. And from there, it just really, really steeply escalated. And, you know, I had kind of my sob story. The worst that it got was I was using needles and smoking crack and all that kind of nasty stuff.
And when did your folks find out?
They started finding out when I was about 14. I got busted at a Sadie Hawkins dance for smoking weed. And my dad pulled me in the bathroom one time. I think he gave me a drug test and I failed it. And, you know, he did, well, shit, at that point, it really was no problem. So he didn't really give me much of a lecture. He's like, you know, just watch out for this. This is not who you are. Don't do this.
Sure. If you got caught smoking weed, right? Like it's like everyone gets caught smoking weed. Like that doesn't mean you're going to be a fucking drug addict.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So. And I don't know. I think they started to get really worried when I was 15. I think that was the first time where I failed a drug test for like everything that was on it, like all 7 things that they were testing for, you know, which is definitely pretty scary for a parent. I get that now.
I don't mean to laugh, but I guess that's kind of, that was funny how you said I failed for everything.
Yeah. Yeah. At one point, they were very aware of it because at some point, in a moment of like kind of crying out for help, I said, look, if you want to catch me for everything, you have, or if you want to catch me for everything I'm doing, you have to test me at least every 3 days, because most things I'm doing, I can get out in about that amount of time. Right. And then I started like carrying fake pee around with me to hide even that. And it was a whole deal. But yeah, man, that's my story. I left for Utah, and it completely fucking changed my life. And now took me a long time to get here, but I would not trade that experience, and I wouldn't trade the pain that I went through for anything in the world, because that is what kind of forged me into that experience, is what forged me into the person I am today, and what gives me a lot of my character.
I can completely understand that. I don't have drug addiction problems or anything like that, but I do experience really intense, and it can be, both chronic and acute, I guess, anxiety, where, I mean, I can go into a tunnel, and that thing is, I'm a little in it currently. I got a concussion, and then like the concussion can set off some symptoms, of that can lead that way. So I'm a little in it currently now, but man, it's like my best friend and my worst enemy all at once. And I'm thankful for it. So I totally understand what you're saying. Like this whole podcast for me started because of, 4 years ago coming out of a really acute episode. So
wow, that's awesome, man.
Yeah, I feel you though, right? I understand that most people are like, man, you probably wish like that's your drug addiction might be like the worst thing about you, right? And where you can go. But yeah, so most people wish the worst thing about them didn't happen. Or, but you're the exact opposite. You're like, man, fuck yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I love this concept of our greatest gifts lie next to our deepest wounds, right? Yes. The things, our worst times in life, our biggest weaknesses, they are so attached and ingrained to our biggest successes. And I think that the quicker we can learn to look for the silver lining or the gold in whatever struggle we're going through, the faster we can move through them, and the more we're going to gain out of those experiences.
I 100% agree with you. Like, my anxiety is 100% what drives me. And it drives me in such a good way most of the time. But the other side of the coin is awfulness. Up all night with my friends, fucking crying on a phone at 3 a.m. because I can't sleep. And this happens. But it is also the thing that makes you amazing. So these things that you're talking about that made you terrible, let's say, right, on the bad side of the scheme, they also have this drive that created a 2-time champion. They have this drive. It's what made you be able to forge into the founder of your own company, now the president of the company that your wife started, So yeah, it's hard to see that though. Like in the deepest, darkest dance with the devil, it's really hard to see that.
Totally agree, man.
So man, so you competed for a while, right? And then you started, what's Brute Strength? Tell me about it. Tell everyone about it.
So after 2013, so I won the games in 2012 and 13, and I retired after that because I had a huge back surgery. I had to have a lumbar fusion done on my back. And so I switched to coaching, and I spent a couple of years coaching at the collegiate level. I trained at Southern Utah University and then Louisiana State University. And when I was working at LSU, we would have football players and baseball players coming in for like an hour, and then we might have 30 to 60 minutes in between the groups of athletes that we were working with. And in between those groups, I started our first business with my current business partner, Matt Bruce. It was called Bruce Barbell. And what we did was, and basically how this started is he's the one that got me the job at LSU.
Can I stop you for 1 sec? I'm going to cut you off.
Yeah, go.
Because I just have a question about this whole LSU thing, because so often, like, you're a CrossFitter, and most traditional sports trainers, like for athletic trainers for sport, they hate CrossFitters, right? So, because they're like, man, you're going to make me do 100 fucking deadlifts. Something like so how did you mitigate that situation, and how did you work that?
I didn't do any CrossFit with football players. I didn't do any CrossFit with baseball players. CrossFit is a great tool, I think, for the general population, for general fitness. We would do some circuit training in the early off season, like or post season, once people are recovered. But once we're in preseason and in season, I just simply don't believe in CrossFit because it's too much stimulus. It's too much impact on people's joints. It just doesn't make sense for most athletes. And so I, developed a reputation for being just a good coach in general. I didn't have a reputation for using CrossFit with football players or anything like that could scare those people away.
I think you're one of the first to kind of go down this route then, because a lot of people who got way into CrossFit, especially in the early days, 7-8 years ago, it was CrossFit or die, right?
Right.
Like CrossFit for everything. And look,
you're right, dude.
I like some CrossFit, but I have to know that when I'm training heavy jiu-jitsu, I can't do fucking CrossFit. Like if I do CrossFit, I am wrecked. I am unable to train jiu-jitsu.
Right.
So
I totally agree.
And that's a great realization. So I just wanted to hear, I was like, man, first I was curious because I was like, damn, did he really have like football players doing CrossFit like on a Tuesday before a game? Because so yeah, that's interesting, and that's a good way to look at it. So anyway, go back to you met your business partner Bruce, right?
Yeah, so he gets me this job at LSU, and I say, hey, Matt, what can I do to repay you? Like, this is huge. This is my dream job. I grew up like idolizing LSU football players. Like, what can I do to repay you? And he says, hey, man, I know that you're already coaching some people remotely. I had been writing training programs for a small handful of people remotely, and just to make some side cash. And he said, why don't we do this? Why don't we team up and you put the whole program together, but wherever you want them to do weightlifting, Matt Bruce is one of the best American weightlifters of the past 20 years. He was around when Chad Vaughn and Kendrick Ferris were around. He said, just have me develop the weightlifting, right? And so we would be coming at it as a team rather than just one guy writing the entire program and trying to be the expert in all of these different modalities, right?
So what were you programming then? If he was doing the weightlifting, were you doing like the gymnastic stuff?
CrossFit, gymnastics, endurance, everything other than the weightlifting. So
you're saying when it came to their strength part, you were doing their strength. He was doing their strength stuff.
Yeah, so weightlifting being snatch and clean and jerk.
Got it. Okay, got it.
Right. Back in the day, when CrossFit first came around, the CrossFit Games first came around, it was all of the top athletes were being coached by a single individual, and they were trying to be the expert in everything. That's like the equivalent of Conor McGregor having the same exact coach for his stand-up, his boxing, his Muay Thai, his kickboxing, his grappling, his wrestling, the same guy trying to teach him everything. That would never happen today, right? And so
don't do that.
Exactly. So when we started this while I was at LSU, I think we were the very first people to start doing that. Don't get me on record. I don't know if that's a fact, but I think we were either the first or one of the few. And so we started doing that. And at some point I decided I didn't want to be in strength and conditioning. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I'm starting to move back to Salt Lake City at this point. And
who was the one guy? Can I ask? Who was the one guy who was everyone's coach?
Oh, no. I mean, like there were 10 different guys, but each athlete had like only one person. One
person. Okay. I'm sorry. I misunderstood you there. So got it. Maybe it's a fucking concussion. I didn't hear it. So I hear what you're saying. So there is plenty of people coaching individual athletes, but they wanted to coach every aspect.
Exactly.
Got it.
Exactly.
Okay.
So as I'm moving back to Salt Lake City, my teammate, Tommy Hackenbrook, the guy that was like one of the best ever and I won the games with, he said, hey, I know you're doing this thing with your partner, Matt. Why don't we blow that up a little bit? Why don't we use my name? Why don't we use the name of the team to help leverage that name and reach more people? And so that's what we did. And Matt Bruce, bless his heart, he was so egotistical. He had to have his name in this new business name. And so the name of our team back in the day was Ute CrossFit, UTE. That's the name of like an Indian tribe in Utah. So UTE CrossFit. And then Matt Bruce BRUTE, Brute. You following me?
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
Because he had to have it that way?
He had to have his name in it. So we started this thing called Brute Strength, and we just continued doing what we were already doing. We were working with people that wanted to make it to CrossFit Regionals or CrossFit Games. And from there, we realized that we could serve a much larger population, CrossFitters that are just interested in doing better in the open, people that are just interested in looking better naked, people that want to do better at the snatch and clean and jerk, all of that kind of thing. So what we do at Brute, what Brute still does is develops online training programs with expert coaches in all of the different modalities. So what we did was we found an expert in gymnastics, an expert in endurance, an expert in swimming, and together, just like a football team or just like Conor McGregor's general manager, right? They have a team around every single individual.
Makes sense. Yeah. There's so many different things going on.
Exactly.
That was a genius way to look at it, and a genius move on your part of realizing to go after the entire population. Because for sure. CrossFit, I'm sure CrossFitters are, it's cool, athletes, it's cool. It's great to say you had a champion. But I'm in a similar boat. I have a martial arts school where we have pro fighters. I don't think I make much money off the pro fighters,
right? Right.
Even though they pay me, right? But the cost on the other end, and plus most of the guys coming up, they're broke, right? They don't have a ton of money to pay people, right?
Right.
And then the percentage of the population that actually wants to be a champion.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what sport I guess every basketball player wants to be a basketball champion when they start out, but my school is filled with people that have no inclination of being a champion, but they love the martial arts.
For sure.
I think the same thing with CrossFit, right? Same thing, I think, with just exercise in general, right? People exercise. We like to do it. So can we do it in a better way? And we always like to do things in a better way.
Amen.
So how did you move? I guess, so you said you started WAG with your wife, or your wife started it, right? And then you came on a couple of years ago. How did
Correct,
you meet your wife? At what point did you meet your wife, and where was that in this whole Brute Strength and all of that?
Yeah, so I started Brute in November of 2014. Okay. And Adi and I hadn't met yet, but she started WAG in November of 2014. 6 months later, we meet at a business mastermind in San Diego, and we fell in love pretty quickly. I think we moved in together in 2 or 3 months. We moved into a travel trailer together, and got married a year later. The whole deal. And then
her name is Adi.
Adi, A-D-E-E.
So I did WAG, I don't know, right when Kelsey got her that we were talking about before I just got into it. My wife and I did it for a little bit, and I thought her name was Addie.
Yeah,
so
everybody.
Renee and I would always talk, everyone does. Yeah, I always say Addie. So Adi is her name. All right, cool.
Yes, it's Hebrew.
Yeah. She's a Jew?
She's a Jew, man. Are you a Jew?
She's a Jew. I'm a Jew. My mom, I'm a Jew in the sense of Jewish. My mom's a Jew. Yeah. So
got it.
My mom's Jewish, so that side of my family's Jewish.
Yeah.
Yourself?
No.
No. Okay.
You didn't even understand what I just said. You don't speak any Hebrew.
No, not at all. Adonai. That's what I meant, bro. I'm fucking Jew-ish. I'm literally only Jewish. We'll say that because my grandparents are Holocaust survivors. So so I have a very strong tie to them. So therefore, I will always carry on the tradition.
It's beautiful, man. Yeah, I just said nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Yeah.
So you meet Adi at a conference, and then you move in together. You guys get married. So what's it like? 2015, 16? You guys get married?
2016, yep.
2016, okay.
And a couple of years ago, I just started talking about how I wasn't as stoked about what I was doing anymore. And I didn't really know what else I might do. But she just started planting this seed in my ear of working together and leading this company together. And one of the biggest reasons was because we wanted to start a family. And we knew that if we were both running different companies, we weren't going to be able to be the parents that we want to be. And we also just really believe in what we do at WAG. Not that I don't believe in what we do at Brute, but I think the opportunity in nutrition is much bigger. We can reach a much larger audience. And so that was really appealing to me. The opportunity to work with my wife was also really appealing because we have very, very different strengths that complement one another. And so a couple of years ago, I decided to start to move over, and I moved over full time. I became the president and as well as the director of marketing.
Can a couple of questions with that? So
yep.
How soon did you become the president? Right away?
Yep.
How was that for all the other people that have been working there for a while?
Really good question. A little jarring. It was a little jarring. Like, we didn't have a really good plan for what my responsibilities were going to be. And we also didn't do a great job of explaining what my purpose was in the company, what the intention was in bringing me over. And so there was a little bit of a fumble there. And so, it kind of scared some people for a while and made them uncomfortable. And we're the type of company that has really tough conversations. And so now, everything is crystal clear. I'm a part of the family, a part of the crew. But yeah, that's a really good question. We didn't handle that as best we could.
Not cool that you didn't do that, but it's cool that you realized that, so that the next time, right? Like I'm in your situation. We have 7 schools, and
yeah,
there's an order of things that you have to, because I like to say everything's the people business, right? Like nothing's not, you're in the nutrition business. No, you're not. You're in the people business. Because if you don't get people on board with what you're doing and you don't communicate well and show that you love and care, then you could have the best nutrition program in the world and it's not going to do shit.
Right. Exactly.
What did you say? I'm sorry. You said something where you have tough conversations. I want to know, what does that look like in your guys' space? What does that look like in your company when you said you had tough conversations?
Yeah, that's a really active thing that we're working on right now, but it starts with our leadership team. So we have 54 people that work at WAG total. About 30 of those are full-time, and 7 are what we call our leadership team. So COO, CEO, president, et cetera. And we started doing something called strengths and obstacles about a little over a year ago, which is the equivalent of a very deep therapy experience with our leadership team. It gave us an opportunity to really praise each other for where we are strong, highlight what everyone's goals are on the team, and then also identify obstacles to getting to those goals. So it's a process for having like a really tough conversation and giving each other critical feedback. So we did that once last year in April. We did it again in our recent annual retreat, and then we're doing it again in just a few weeks. And so by having this formal process of bringing up basically what we see each other's weaknesses as being, and talking through that, and kind of coming to completion with that, and helping each other create a roadmap to improving on those weaknesses, there's not much that's off limits in our company. It's led to some healing of some pretty disconnected relationships. It's led to more psychological safety within the company, more cohesion. I think because of all of those things, more collaboration and creativity, and in general, just like a sense of belonging to the group and like just loving where we work.
I totally understand, because we do the same exact thing.
That's awesome.
We call it successes and obstacles. So not so much strengths,
Nice.
but yeah. So we do it on a bi-weekly basis. Because we have manager meetings. Our GMs all meet. I'm not even in on the meetings. So our GMs meet once a week, and they flip back and forth. Where 1 week they're going over some tactical things, like of where we're moving and things like that, and then the next and also that week they go over like the numbers, like okay, we're gonna what did signups look like, what did retention look like, what was the revenue, blah blah blah, at all the schools, and then the next week they go over successes and failures of things that they're trying to implement and that are going on in school. And it just the connection that it brings between the people is what it is. I think, right? Is like I hear where you're strong, and then you hear where you get to hear where I'm weak, and then you get to kind of bring me up. It's like somebody else lift, like the whole team just gets to move up together rather than just like, look what I did.
Right.
We also do this thing. Have you guys ever done 360 reviews?
Yes. Yeah. 3 of us have done a 360 now. They're incredible.
They're tough, right? They're incredible, but they're tough, right? Like, like there's the guy who does it for us. What does he say? He says there's the things that are true, that are fine. You can hear them. The things that they're true, but you don't want to admit it, but it's true. And then there's the shit that hits you out of left field. And you're like, that is not fucking true about me. Did you guys have that experience? Was it like that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I really pride myself on being a very self-aware person. And I didn't think anything new was going to come up in this thing, but there were some sucker punches, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was the most valuable thing I've ever done as a leader. The most valuable, hands down.
I'm better friends. So there was everything I knew in mine was true. Every fucking thing. Right. Except for one thing. And when that one thing came up, and it wasn't even that big, it was one thing from one person. And I was like, I don't even know where the fuck they got that from. Like, that is not fucking true. Like, I was so upset. And like, but eventually the person came out and told me who it was. Like they came to me and they wrote it. And we are better now. We are better friends. We are better everything because we worked through that situation. But I was so fucking mad. Yeah.
That's awesome, dude.
Was yours, I'm taking yours was, I don't know if you were as mad as I was, but similar?
I don't think I was angry at all. I think I was a little ashamed that, people saw certain things in me that I didn't know was there. Maybe a little afraid that they didn't care about me. They didn't like me. That kind of thing came up a lot. Like I didn't feel like I was wanted for a while, but all of that was just a story. Like I was making meaning out of what they were saying. But it was the best thing that ever happened to me as a leader. And if I may, for anyone listening, whether you're a leader, an entrepreneur, or anything at all, I think you can create something like this for yourself. So what we're talking about here is a system for getting feedback from other people. So there are, kind of going along with what you're talking about, Eliot, there are the things that we know in life. There are the things that we don't know. And then there are this other huge piece of the puzzle, which is the things we don't know, right? These are called blind spots. There are all of these things that we don't know about ourselves in that the way that people are perceiving us, things that are really valuable to know and to clean up. And a 360 interview is just a process usually for leaders of some sort or high performers to get feedback from the people that they work most closely with and to find the themes in all of that feedback. But something that I've started to have a lot of people do is to start creating a little bit of this for themselves. So what I have them do is I have them reach out to at least 5 people that are closest to them in their life, ideally in different parts of their life. So, maybe a couple family members, a couple friends, a couple colleagues, etc. And I have them ask them something super simple, like, what do you think are my biggest strengths? And if it's a family member, you can say, you can just keep it kind of general, but if it's at work, you can say, what do you think my biggest strengths are at work? And then what do you think are the biggest obstacles or opportunities for me? And just keep it super simple like that. Don't make them take a whole bunch of time, and just see what you get back. A lot of it will probably be like really reaffirming, and it might make you more confident in the things that you already think you are good at. But it can feel amazing to hear that what you think you're good at, people are also perceiving you that way. And then on the other hand, you might have some opportunities of things that you can work on. You might see some new weaknesses that other people see in you that you can work on to improve yourself, to be more successful, to be a happier version of yourself.
Man, it's so refreshing to hear you say all this stuff, for because I don't think a lot of companies are doing it. You know, I think sometimes people, they get stuck in the hierarchy of companies, right? Like I'm up here and you're down here, right? And it's so great to hear that you guys are doing it, because I know what it's done for us. You know, like it's been so amazing. So it's great to hear that WAG is all about it as well, right? Because you're working on the human and the person, you know.
For sure.
And that's really what we're doing in all of it. Like, I mean, sure, martial arts is cool, and sure, eating well is cool. Like that's great. But like in the big scheme of things, it doesn't really fucking matter if nobody's happy, right? If nobody's self-satisfied, that I really like John Wooden's definition of success. You're self-satisfied and knowing that you gave your absolute best in any situation. So, you know, and that doesn't come with, I mean, great eating and great exercise can be part of that, but there's so much more to it. So
absolutely.
Before we leave the WAG thing, talk to everybody about it, because I do have one more question for you after this. It sounds like you and I share a similar demon, but talk to everyone about WAG and like what it is actually that WAG does, and you know, and how you help people.
Yeah. So first and foremost, we do one-on-one nutrition coaching. So when you sign up with us, you go through a pretty extensive questionnaire. We take that questionnaire and pair you with the perfect coach on our staff for you. That coach sends you a custom meal plan. And the magic of the program is that you'll go out in your life and you'll try to adhere to this program. You'll try to follow the program. And because you're a human being, you're going to hit obstacles and challenges along the way. And all throughout the week, you check in with your coach, who gives you feedback and advice and strategies to overcome your specific obstacles and challenges. So if for whatever reason you're just having trouble eating enough protein, they're going to give you specific strategies to overcome that. If traveling too much is your issue, they're going to give you strategies to overcome that. So whatever your problem is, actually sticking with the diet, they're going to help you they're going to co-create with you a program that is perfect for you. That's the one-on-one coaching. A couple of years ago, we had a lot of requests from former members or people that were interested in becoming nutrition coaches, saying, hey, I've had this huge transformation in my life because of nutrition coaching. Will you teach me to do what you do? And so that's happening. And on the other hand, our company is growing and we're onboarding more and more coaches at a accelerated rate. And so we created our coach training course for internal use only. And at some point we decided, okay, enough people are asking for this. Why don't we just sell our internal coach training course to the public? And so we started doing that. That's called the WAG coach certification. People are absolutely loving this thing. So there are a lot of nutrition coach courses online and some really great ones. What we really pride ourselves on is being super practical and giving people a mentor to go through the entire course with. So the thing that people rave about this course, the thing that they rave about in this course is that at the end of it, they actually feel confident enough to start coaching with people rather than feeling like they just gained a bunch of knowledge, but they still don't feel like they know what to do when it comes to actually coaching people. And then finally,
that's such a huge difference. That's such a huge difference, right? Like you can have all the knowledge in the world, but if you don't know how to disseminate that to somebody else, then I mean, good for you. You have some knowledge. It's worthless as far as like doing anything with. That's such a huge piece that you just touched on right there. I know I cut you off, but sorry.
No, you're good. And the way that we do, thank you. And the way that we do that is by allowing people to practice under the wing of a mentor, one of our top coaches. Okay. And so finally, you know, one of the biggest obstacles new nutrition coaches face is, okay, now I know how to coach people, but how do I do it? Like, what software do I use? Do I use spreadsheets? Like, how do I do the business side of it? And so we had enough people ask for that now we're allowing people that are certified under us to join our business program, where we give them marketing and sales material. We give them the same technology that we use with our clients for them to use with theirs, and everything that they need to start an online nutrition business. And that's called the WAG business program.
Do you take a piece of their business, or is it just like they pay for it and then that's it?
Yeah. So to be certified by us, it costs $1,000. And to start a business with us, it costs $30 per user per month. So if you're coaching one client, it's $30 a month. If you are coaching 100 clients, it's $3,000 a month.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it's super low risk.
Sure. Our companies are on very similar paths, my man.
Awesome.
We're about to release our first. Nobody's done this in the martial arts space of how to run your school. Like, there's people that teach you moves, right? They teach you. There's tons of world champions out there that have online courses and DVDs and digital stuff of like, okay, this is how you do jiu-jitsu. The problem is if there's no school that can stay in business around you, then you can't fucking do jiu-jitsu. Right. And I mean, like people do okay, but it's this constant worry of like a stress, the stress of, am I going to pay my bills? And that stress is awful. So we are about to release our first course on how to run your business. That's amazing.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're the perfect person to do that if you're running 7 successful gyms. That's amazing.
We have the one's not successful yet. It just opened it just opened. When did it open? January, the middle of January. But it's breaking even. So I haven't had to dump more money in. So 1 month breaking even, we're good.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah. So man, it's cool to hear somebody in a different space doing such similar things. You know, it's really refreshing. One last question before we get out of here. I know you're busy. It sounds like, what I said was, it sounds like you and I suffer from a very similar demon. And I think you touched on it earlier. I have a feeling, and I don't know what it means for me to sometimes be good enough for the people in my life, right? Like, what does that look like? And it comes down to fitting in, right? Like, I'm always worried about that fitting in thing. So, how do you deal with yours? You know, how do you deal with that demon? Because it's not like, you know, you're sober now and all that. It didn't just go away. It's still there, right? Like, our demons don't leave us. We just have better tools of dealing with them.
Dude, thank you for this question. It's a phenomenal question. How do you be enough for the people in your life? I think it's actually the wrong question. I think it's more about how do you become enough for yourself. When you're enough for yourself, then you just emanate self-confidence, self-esteem, and you are immediately enough for others. And so if you ask me that question, how am I enough for myself? I am very clear about the things that make me feel best, right? So I'll rattle off some of them. I feel best when I meditate 20 minutes a day. I feel best when I move for 30 minutes a day. I feel best when I don't work over 8 hours a day. I feel best when I'm having sex 2 to 3 days a week. All of these things, right? For many years, I've journaled and I've just really paid attention to the things I'm doing and not doing when I'm at my worst, and the things I'm doing and not doing when I'm at my best. And I make a practice on either pole, right? If I'm at a bottom or at a peak, to write down, be very specific what things are contributing, right? And I've seen these patterns come up over and over. And so all of that to say, I know what makes me feel best. The way that I am enough for myself is just by doing those things, right? If I know I feel best moving 30 minutes a day and meditating 20 minutes a day, and I'm not making time for that, then I'm not treating myself like I really love myself, right? And if I'm not treating myself that way, then I don't feel like I belong to myself. So my life has been about keeping those things very top of mind, remembering them, creating systems for making sure I don't forget, and creating systems where it's just automatic that those things are baked into my life. Even things using my calendar, using my scheduler, using my assistant to help me make sure I don't stop doing these things. And when I make mistakes, because I am a human being, when I make mistakes and I fall off of any of these, I remind myself what's important, and I make more space for the things that really matter. And if I'm doing those things consistently, then I'm signaling to myself that I care about me, right? And if I care about me, that means I love myself. And so then when I tell myself things like, Michael, I love you, I feel like it's genuine, right? There's an integrity in that. I feel like I am in integrity. And so all of that to say, when I feel like I belong to myself, I feel like I love myself, then I don't doubt if I'm enough for other people. You're right. And I have to be paying attention to people's needs and their requests of me. And I have to be a good friend and a good husband and a good son and all of those things. But the very base of the pyramid of like fitting in with others and being enough for other people absolutely starts with being enough for myself and treating myself like someone I love.
You complimented me on the question. Your answer was better. Your answer was way better. I appreciate it. You're gonna help me with that, because one of the places that I struggle with is I have a good amount of compassion for other people. Like when they're not doing their best, let's say, for a reason, not to me, but just in general, right? Like because they're we all go through these stages. Like for example, me right now with my concussion, I can't you just can't cognitively function at your best. Like
right.
there's just nothing to it. And I have so much compassion for other people in this when they are there. I don't have much compassion for myself.
Right.
And I'm trying, and I like, for example, we had a tournament this weekend, this big jiu-jitsu tournament, and man, I just didn't coach. I could, and one of the, I'm not an amazing coach, but one of the things that I do very well is in the middle of a fight or a match, I can really see what's going on. And I'm very good at giving clear and concise information, relaying that to the fighter so that they can implement. Mm-hmm. I couldn't do it that well. I couldn't do it as well. Let's say I couldn't do it as well as I would have liked to have performed.
Sure.
And normally I'd be beating myself up, but right now I'm trying to work on that. What you were just talking about, giving myself some space to realize where I am so that I know that I'm enough. Right. Like,
amen, man.
So it's definitely something I'm working on. I meditate and I do, and I do that. So, but how you said your needs, exactly what it is you need, and when you're meeting your needs and you're enough for you, then you're enough for other people. That is fucking gold, like absolute gold. So man, I really appreciate, man. Like you're like, for me, even if we never talk again, which I'm not going to allow, but no, I guess it's a two-way street. You have to talk to me back. But even if we were to never speak again, that would be such a helpful thing for my life moving forward. That was, you get these little tidbits that people add to you. So
thank you, man. I'm glad that landed.
You asked me in the beginning before we came on air, like what the purpose of the podcast was, and I think that's the purpose. Right? The purpose is
hell yeah,
just for somebody out there somewhere to hear something and be like, God damn, all right, you know, and like have that catch. And then if it actually changes their life, how fucking amazing. How much was it worth our hour to sit here and talk to each other and like become friends and acquaintances? Like that's cool. But what's even cooler is if we got to touch a life like that.
Absolutely. And as far as I'm concerned, if it landed for you, then it was worth the hour for me. And you know, what you can do for me for giving you this hour and what everybody else can do is if that landed for you, if it really resonates, then do something with it. You know, take stock, take inventory of the things that you're doing on a daily basis, a weekly basis, a monthly basis that are working for you and the ones that aren't working for you. If you're working too much right now and it's causing you anxiety, then what do you need to bake into your week to give yourself more mental space, to love your life more? If you're not sleeping enough, where can you add some more sleep? Whatever the things are that really light you up and make you love your life, how can you make more time for that? And so write those things down, put them into the calendar, because your life is at stake.
It 100% is. It 100% is. And it's not that you're going to die. It's that you're going to live some shitty experience.
Exactly.
Right? It's not going to kill you. You know, you can go days without sleep. You can go days without eating. They don't kill you, but you know, I guess eating eventually does. But like you know, but yes, you won't. You're not going to die. But what is it worth to live a life that you don't love? So, man, tell everyone where they can reach you.
I'm not real active or reachable on the internet. I try to make a habit of it, but I am on Instagram at Michael Cazayoux, Cazayaux. I check social media occasionally. If you're interested in what we do at WAG, you can go to workingagainstgravity.com. I also have a couple of podcasts. Like the best way to engage with me in any way is just to listen to the podcast, leave reviews, reach out to me on social media. The podcasts are called the Brute Strength Podcast. That's where I do solo episodes as well as interview some of the biggest and brightest people in health and fitness. And then the WAG podcast is conversations between just a D and I, where we're talking about personal development, relationships, nutrition, and relationships. Did I say that one? Yeah.
You did, yeah.
All of those things for like 20 or 30 minutes, quick little bite-sized episodes. Check those out.
There you go. Michael, I appreciate it. For everyone listening, you know how this rolls. You are infinitely powerful. We don't know what that power, I don't know what that power is. Yours is not the same as mine. It is not the same as Michael's, but go out there and do your best and find your power, everyone. You can do it. You have the power to do it. So thanks everyone for listening. And thank you, Michael.
Thanks a lot, brother.